Mastering Skills for the Toefl IBT Listening. Copyright 2006 Compass Publishing. All rights reserved. Chapter 1. Short Passage Skill Practice. Skill A. Understanding main ideas and organization. 1. Campus life.
Hey, I saw you guys playing softball. Could I join your team?
Well, we're full right now, actually. Are you signed up in the Intramural Sports League?
No. How does that work?
Go to Whithurst Hall, room 304, and fill out a form to sign up as a free agent. Then, if a team needs a player, they can select you from a list. You just have to sign up and pay the fees.
Fees, huh? What are those like?
Well, they're $30 per player for a season if you're on a team. I'm not sure about free agents.
Number 1. What are the speakers mainly discussing? Number 2. How does the man help the woman? Number 3. According to the man, how much does it cost to join a 2. Sociology.
Could you explain the differences between pre-industrial, early industrial, and mature industrial populations again?
Of course. A pre-industrial population, like, say, a tribe, has a high death rate and a high birth rate. Many people die, but many new babies are born too, so their population is stable. A mature industrial population, such as the U.S., has low birth and death rates, so the population is also stable in theory. On the other hand, an early industrial population, like India, can achieve low death rates but still have high birth rates, so it experiences a population explosion. Thus, it differs from the other two.
Number 1. What is the talk mainly about? Number 2. What are 2 key features of a pre-industrial population? Choose 2 answers. Number 3. In what order does the professor explain the categories? 3. Literature. I noticed that many of you wrote in your term papers that Shakespeare invented the sonnet. This is a fallacy. Shakespeare did popularize the sonnet in England, but it had been in existence in Italy for 2 centuries before that. Sonnets were being written in Italian as pastoral love poems. If you recall from earlier lectures, it was Petrarch who refined the form and set the standard for the Italian sonnet with 2 parts. The first part being 8 lines, and the second part 6 lines. Shakespearean sonnets, on the other hand, have 4 parts. 3 quatrains, or 4-line parts, and 1 couplet, or 2-line part. Number 1. What is the talk mainly about? Number 2. How does the professor emphasize his point about sonnets? Number 3. According to the professor, where did sonnets exist before Shakespeare wrote them? 4. Campus life.
What can I do for you?
I really wanted to take Chemistry 221 with you, but the class is full.
Is it a required course for you?
Yes, it is. I'm majoring in chemistry.
I presume you have the prerequisites then?
Prerequisites?
Prerequisites are those courses that you need to have completed in order to enroll in any given class. The prerequisite for Chemistry 221 is Chemistry 100.
Oh, yes, of course.
In that case, you can enroll in the class.
But the class is full. Don't I have to put my name on a waiting list or anything?
No, not for required courses. Anyone who needs to take a class to fulfill their course requirements is permitted to enter.
Number 1. Why does the woman go to see the professor? Number 2. How does the professor explain prerequisite? Choose 2 answers. Number 3. According to the professor, why can the woman enroll in the course? Four. Campus life.
What can I do for you?
I really wanted to take Chemistry 221 with you, but the class is full.
Is it a required course for you?
Yes, it is. I'm majoring in chemistry.
I presume you have the prerequisites then?
Prerequisites?
Prerequisites are those courses that you need to have completed in order to enroll in any given class. The prerequisite for Chemistry 221 is Chemistry 100.
Oh, yes, of course.
In that case, you can enroll in the class.
But the class is full. Don't I have to put my name on a waiting list or anything?
No, not for required courses. Anyone who needs to take a class to fulfill their course requirements is permitted to enter.
Number 1. Why does the woman go to see the professor? Number 2. How does the professor explain prerequisite? Choose 2 answers. Number 3. According to the professor, why can the woman enroll in the course? Five. Geology.
The 2 main types of glacial erosion are plucking and abrasion. Plucking occurs when blocks of rock are pulled away from the bedrock. The glacier works like a backhoe. Water flows into cracks in the rock. It then refreezes and expands, causing the chunk of rock to separate from the bedrock. A glacier can then pick up these loose chunks as it passes over the bedrock. This process creates a lot of loose debris, which causes abrasion. Now, abrasion works like sandpaper, with the debris grinding away at the bedrock. If the debris is coarse, it will create long grooves in the bedrock called striations. On the other hand, if the debris is fine, it will create a smooth surface.
Number 1. What is the talk mainly about? Number 2. How does the professor explain abrasion? Number 3. What does the professor say about abrasion with coarse debris? 6. Health science. One commonly pasteurized product is milk. By decreasing the amount of dangerous bacteria present, milk can be made safer to consume. It also lasts longer after it's been pasteurized. The most common pasteurization procedure is high-temperature, short-time, HTST, pasteurization. The milk is kept at 72 degrees Celsius for at least 15 seconds. That is the high temperature, 72 degrees, for a short time, 15 seconds. This allows the milk to remain fresh for 2 or 3 weeks if refrigerated. For longer-lasting milk, the ultra-high temperature, UHT, method is used. This milk is heated to 138 degrees Celsius and held there for only 2 seconds. Milk pasteurized under the UHT method can remain fresh for up to 2 or 3 months. Number 1. What aspect of pasteurization does the professor mainly discuss? Number 2. How does the professor explain the effect of pasteurization on the shelf life of milk? Number 3. What are two key features of the ultra-high temperature pasteurization process? Choose two answers. Seven. Campus life.
Hey, Josie, you assessed Peter's presentation, didn't you?
Yep, I thought he did pretty well.
Me too. How did you actually fill out the assessment form?
Well, I noted down the main ideas, the strengths, and then one thing that could be improved, like how Peter was chewing gum during the presentation.
Okay, that's it?
No, then I graded him on several areas from 1 to 4, 4 being the best. Like, I gave Peter a 4 for eye contact because he didn't look at the floor at all.
I see. You know, I asked because I'm assessing you next Thursday.
Number 1. What are the speakers mainly discussing? Number 2. How does the woman explain the procedure? Number 3. What is an example that the woman gives of a quality that earned a high grade? Eight. Journalism.
The scholarly method involves careful analysis and interpretation of information. Information must come from somewhere. These are the sources. There are 3 types of sources: primary, secondary, and tertiary. Primary sources come from documents created by people who witnessed events firsthand. A person's diary is an example of a primary source. When information from primary sources is interpreted by others, it is called a secondary source. For example, if someone read that diary, compared it to newspapers from the same period, and wrote about it, this would be a secondary source. If someone then read that secondary source and created a new document, that would be a tertiary source.
Number 1. What is the talk mainly about? Number 2. How does the professor explain the different sources of information? Number 3. What is an example the professor gives of a primary source? Skill B. Understanding details and facts. 1. Campus life.
I'd like to audition for the jazz band.
What is your name and instrument?
I'm Roger Watkins, and I play the trumpet.
Okay, that's Roger Watkins on trumpet.
Do you have any pointers for how to prepare for the audition?
Well, you will be tested on style, tempo, dynamics, scales, tone, range, and sight reading.
That's a lot of stuff. What is the most important?
You'd better have your scales memorized and be ready for sight reading.
I know my scales. I've played the trumpet since middle school, so I'll focus on my sight reading.
On the day of the audition, be sure to arrive early and give yourself plenty of time to warm up. That's very important.
Number 1. What does the man need from the woman? Number 2. What does the woman advise the man to do? 2. History.
Alexander the Great began his quest to conquer the world at the age of 20, when he became the king of Macedonia. That's probably the same age as many of you here. He and his army defeated the then powerful Persian Empire and continued to acquire vast amounts of territory. At the time of his death, he ruled the largest Western empire of ancient times. Some remember him as a charismatic leader whose purpose was to foster East-West relations. Others say he was a brutal killer who was only interested in personal glory. Most historians, though, do agree on one point. He was a brilliant military strategist and leader.
Number 1. What aspect of Alexander's career does the professor mainly discuss? Number 2. Which empire is mentioned in the lecture? Number 3. What are the characteristics for which Alexander is remembered? Choose 3 answers. Three. Paleontology. Fossils tell us about organisms that lived in the past. Actually, most people don't realize it, but fossil preservation is quite rare. So, we know very little about most of the organisms that came before us. The reason that fossil preservation is rare is that, in order to be fossilized, an organism must meet 3 specific requirements. First, it must be made of a substance that is preservable. Hard substances like bones or shells are highly preservable. Second, it must be buried in sediment, which protects it from decay. Third, the organism must have lived in a suitable environment, such as a shoreline. That's where dead animals would most likely be covered by sediment before they decay. Number 1. What aspect of paleontology does the professor mainly discuss? Number 2. According to the professor, where do fossils usually form? Number 3. What are 2 examples that the professor gives of preservable materials? Choose 2 answers. 4. Campus life.
Sorry, guys, this court is reserved from 3 to 4.
Reserved? For what?
Some other students registered to reserve this court over a week ago.
How do you do that?
You go to the gym office during office hours, tell them when you want to reserve the court, and then present your student ID card. Then they'll authorize the reservation.
That's not very fair. We were here first, and someone can just reserve the court for whenever they want?
No, you can only reserve 1 hour per week and only 1 week beforehand. Otherwise, the court is on a first-come, first-served basis.
Well, I appreciate the info. Let's go, guys.
Number 1. What is the discussion mainly about? Number 2. Where does the woman suggest the man go? Number 3. According to the woman, what does a student need to show the office? 5. Physics.
We are all here to learn physics, but why?
Because it's a required course?
That's probably true for most of you. In truth, you can come here and just memorize the formula and get a decent grade, but I want you to learn physics as an activity, like you would learn to ride a bike. If you have to jump a ravine, I want you to be able to calculate the required momentum to get across. If there is a fire in your house, I want you to know the best course of action based on principles of smoke and heat diffusion. Physics is actually quite useful.
Number 1. What is the talk mainly about? Number 2. According to the professor, how should the subject matter be learned? Number 3. What are 2 examples the professor gives of situations in which physics is useful? Choose 2 answers. Six. Art. Masks have a long history in Western civilization. going as far back as the Greeks. They were first used in religious rituals to impersonate the god Dionysus. Obviously, rituals were not meant for entertainment, but these impersonations led to full theatrical productions. Greek masks were made from painted leather or canvas, and like other masks you may be familiar with, these Greek masks exaggerated facial features. They also helped amplify the actor's voice and allowed one actor to play multiple roles. Later, masks were important in medieval morality plays. Medieval masks were made from papier-mâché and represented demons, devils, and the 7 deadly sins. Number 1. What is the talk mainly about? Number 2. According to the professor, how were medieval masks different from Greek masks? Number 3. What is an example the professor gives of a way in which masks assisted Greek actors? Seven. Campus life.
Why do we have to do a pre-lab report?
Well, the reason we do pre-lab reports is to ensure we understand what we are studying and what we are about to do.
What does it involve?
Exactly that. We state the purpose and outline the procedure.
Okay, so I start with the purpose.
That's right. Your purpose states what you are going to do and what you expect to find.
Should I talk about what was it called? My hypothesis?
Absolutely. Then outline the procedure in a flowchart.
So I should write it in this order: purpose, hypothesis, and procedure.
Yes, and please do it all in your own words. Plagiarism will be punished harshly.
Number 1. What aspect of the lab class does the woman mainly discuss? Number 2. What are 2 key features of the report mentioned in the discussion? Choose 2 answers. Number 3. According to the woman, what will be punished harshly? Eight. Drama.
So theater is a kind of art, but what kind is it?
Didn't you say it was a performing art?
That's right. Remember, we have 3 kinds of art: literary, visual, and performing. A performing art has 2 necessary and sufficient conditions. First, it requires a creator, interpreter, and an audience. And second, the audience and interpreter must be in the same place. Some examples of performing arts are dance, music, and opera. Film, as we discussed last time, contains facets of both visual and performing arts. So in order to make a film, performing artists and visual artists work in collaboration.
Number 1. What is the talk mainly about? Number 2. According to the professor, what are the 3 kinds of art? Number 3. What are 2 key features of performing arts mentioned in the discussion? Choose 2 answers. Skill C. Determining reasons, purposes, and attitudes. 1. Campus life.
How do you always pull off such high grades in English, Harry?
I use a computer flashcard program to remember the irregular forms. It makes studying kind of fun.
Huh? How does that help?
Well, it displays a verb, like freeze for example. Then I have to type in the simple past and past participle forms.
That would be froze and frozen, right?
Right. If I screw up, then it comes up again at the end of my list.
Wow, so it reinforces your shortcomings.
Yeah. It also provides adjectives with synonyms, phrasal verbs with definitions, and it has grammar exercises as well.
Number 1. What does the woman want the man to do? Number 2. Why does the man mention the verb freeze? 2. Sociology.
Who was Mother Teresa then?
The Indian nun?
Actually, she was not Indian but Albanian. She grew up in modern-day Macedonia, when it was encompassed within the Ottoman Empire.
But she did live in India, right?
That's right. She went there as a missionary with Irish nuns. She later started her own religious order to work with the poorest and sickest people. She even did special training with an American medical mission. She was truly a remarkable lady. She fed and taught abandoned children who lived in abject poverty, and she gave comfort to the dying. In 1979, she received the Nobel Peace Prize for her valuable work.
Number 1. What are the people talking about? Number 2. Listen again to part of the conversation. Then answer the question.
Who was Mother Teresa then?
The Indian nun?
Actually, she was not Indian but Albanian.
Why does the man say this?
Actually, she was not Indian but Albanian.
Number 3. What is the man's attitude towards Mother Teresa? Three. Ecology.
What exactly are the problems with the intertidal pools on the California coast?
For one thing, intertidal pools were once some of the most bountiful reservoirs of marine life on the planet. It's now difficult to find a single animal in them, mainly due to poaching and a lack of education. People remove buckets of snails from the pools and use them as fishing bait. Or they pour chemicals in the pools to catch baby octopuses. It's shocking. Or they scrape pool rocks bare to collect barnacles. Most people are unaware that these areas are protected by law.
Number 1. What are the reasons for the low number of animals now found in California's intertidal pools? Choose 2 answers. Number 2. What does the professor imply about the situation? Number 3. What is the professor's attitude toward people who catch octopuses in the pools? Three. Ecology.
What exactly are the problems with the intertidal pools on the California coast?
For one thing, intertidal pools were once some of the most bountiful reservoirs of marine life on the planet. It's now difficult to find a single animal in them, mainly due to poaching and a lack of education. People remove buckets of snails from the pools and use them as fishing bait. Or they pour chemicals in the pools to catch baby octopuses. It's shocking. Or they scrape pool rocks bare to collect barnacles. Most people are unaware that these areas are protected by law.
Number 1. What are the reasons for the low number of animals now found in California's intertidal pools? Choose 2 answers. Number 2. What does the professor imply about the situation? Number 3. What is the professor's attitude toward people who catch octopuses in the pools? 4. History.
History can illuminate the value of tea. In the past, quality tea has been considered more valuable than gold. Tea has even been the impetus for war, like the American Revolution.
I thought that war happened because Americans didn't want to be ruled by the British. What did it have to do with tea?
One of the incidents that touched off the Revolutionary War was a shipment of tea being dumped into the ocean by a group of Americans. Haven't you heard about the Boston Tea Party? It wasn't a party at all. It was one of the first aggressive acts of the Revolution.
Number 1. According to the student, what was one of the causes of the American Revolutionary War? Number 2. Why does the professor mention the Boston Tea Party? Number 3. What does the woman mean when she says this?
I thought that war happened because Americans didn't want to be ruled by the British.
4. History.
History can illuminate the value of tea. In the past, quality tea has been considered more valuable than gold. Tea has even been the impetus for war, like the American Revolution.
I thought that war happened because Americans didn't want to be ruled by the British. What did it have to do with tea?
One of the incidents that touched off the Revolutionary War was a shipment of tea being dumped into the ocean by a group of Americans. Haven't you heard about the Boston Tea Party? It wasn't a party at all. It was one of the first aggressive acts of the Revolution.
Number 1. According to the student, what was one of the causes of the American Revolutionary War? Number 2. Why does the professor mention the Boston Tea Party? Number 3. What does the woman mean when she says this?
I thought that war happened because Americans didn't want to be ruled by the British.
5. Health science. Pets actually bestow many benefits upon their owners. For example, studies have shown that with elderly people, having a pet nearby lowers their blood pressure and raises their spirits. So, for all of you with grandmothers or grandfathers living alone, maybe your next gift to them should be a puppy. Another pertinent study from Britain showed that pets seem to help fight disease. The study found that people cohabiting with pets had a lower risk of heart disease and recovered more quickly from heart attacks than those who didn't live with pets. The study also found that pet owners suffered fewer colds, headaches, and fevers than people who didn't own pets. Number 1. What are examples that the professor gives of health benefits gained from owning a pet? Choose 2 answers. Number 2. Why does the professor mention pets in Britain? Number 3. Why does the professor say this? So, for all of you with grandmothers or grandfathers living alone, maybe your next gift to them should be a puppy. Six. Campus life.
Did you hear the weather report, Jenny? It looks like the weather will clear up by Friday.
Awesome! That means we can take our class trip to the mountains after all. I was afraid our prof would have to cancel it.
I am really looking forward to the hike.
Yeah, this will be my first time hiking in the mountains.
Are you kidding? They're so close. I go up there most weekends with my friends.
I guess I'm just not the outdoors type. Are the trails on the mountain quite arduous?
Not really. Most of them are no sweat. Hiking on them is just like taking a nice long walk through the woods.
Number 1. What does the man say about the weather forecast? Number 2. Why are they happy to hear the weather forecast for Friday? Number 3. What is the woman's attitude toward hiking in the mountains? 7. Paleontology.
65 million years ago, dinosaurs were ubiquitous. Then, they all seemed to die very suddenly. So what happened? Many scientists believe that the dinosaurs were wiped out by a colossal meteor. According to this theory, a meteor 10 kilometers wide hurtled into the Earth. This collision propelled dust and dirt into the sky. Imagine a really cloudy summer day. It's a lot cooler, right? Well, every day was like that for a long time after the collision. Because it was much darker and cooler, many species of plants began to die. Soon, there was no food source for plant-eating dinosaurs, and when they died, there was no food source for meat-eating dinosaurs. The only animals to survive were small ones able to subsist on many different kinds of food.
Number 1. According to the professor, what does the meteor theory estimate? Number 2. Why does the professor mention a meteor? Number 3. Why does the professor say this?
Imagine a really cloudy summer day.
8. Campus life.
I'm having problems logging into the SpanView system. It alleges my password is invalid.
When was the last time you logged in?
Beats me. Sometime last winter, maybe?
Well, if you haven't logged in for 180 days, you need to procure a new password from the registrar's office. Try that first. If that doesn't help, then maybe someone else has gotten a hold of your username and password.
Oh, what do I do if that's the case?
Use your secret question, probably your mother's maiden name, to regain control of your account. That should solve your problem.
Number 1. What's the woman's problem? Number 2. Why does the man ask this?
When was the last time you logged in?
Number 3. Why does the woman say this?
Beats me. Sometime last winter, maybe?
Skill review. 1. Campus life.
Good morning. I was wondering if you could give me some information about the credit by exam system?
Yes, of course. What would you like to know?
Well, first of all, I'm not really sure what credit by exam means.
Okay, it is basically a combination of tests administered by the departments of this university, the college level examination program, and other nationally recognized credit by exam programs.
Right, I know it's some kind of test, but I'm still not quite sure what exactly that means. Can you explain it in a little more detail?
The credit by exam system gives students a chance to take exams even if they are not registered in particular courses. For example, you want to take an exam in, say, English composition, but you don't want to take an English composition class. You register for credit by exam, and if you pass the exam, you get the credit. So, you can demonstrate competence attained by educational experience rather than university instruction.
So, I can take various exams even if I didn't register for that course or didn't attend any of the classes or lectures, and I can still get credits for taking those tests?
That pretty much sums it up.
Now, is it possible to get credits for graduate courses? I'd kind of like to combine my undergraduate degree and a master's degree at the same time, if that's possible. If I could get my BA and an MA at the same time, that would be great.
It would certainly save a lot of time, but I'm afraid that this is only for certain undergraduate courses.
Oh, well.
And of course, I hope you realize that guest matriculants are not eligible for credits.
I'm sorry, guest matriculants?
I mean students who have been admitted to the university through an external program, but are not actually registered as full-time permanent students of this university.
Exchange students and that kind of thing?
They would fall under that category, yes, and extended study students too.
I'm a little worried about how the credits would appear on my transcript. Will there be anything on my transcript to indicate that I did not actually attend classes? I'm afraid that might affect my chances of being accepted to a graduate program if I have not actually attended the classes.
There will be nothing to show the credits were earned under the credit by exam system, but I don't think you need to worry. Each department has very strict eligibility criteria for students, and everyone taking a test is expected to have quite an extensive knowledge of the area to be tested. The credits you receive through testing are just as valid as credits received in the regular way. In any case, only a select few universities are being allowed to participate in the system, so academic standards are being tightly monitored.
Do you have a list of the courses for which students can receive credit by exam?
Yes. Why don't you take this information package, take a look, and give me a call if you have any more questions.
Great, thanks.
Number 1. What does the woman want? Number 2. How does the man explain credit by exam? Choose 2 answers. Number 3. According to the man, what is an example of a guest matriculant? Number 4. According to the woman, what might be a problem with earning credits this way? Number 5. Why does the man tell the woman that she doesn't need to worry? Number 6. What does the woman mean when she says this?
Exchange students and that kind of thing?
Two. Communications.
You are giving a talk in front of a group of people. You've assembled all the relevant facts. You've planned it well, and your delivery is strong. But your audience doesn't respond, or, even worse, they are giving you a negative response. What went wrong? Well, it is probably not what you are saying out loud that matters. The problem stems from what your body says, or in other words, your body language. By body language, I mean things as simple as the way you stand, or, say, folding your arms across your chest. Body language includes the gestures and movements people make when they communicate. I can't stress enough how important this is. All too often, people just don't pay attention to their body language. If we go back to our earlier scenario of giving a talk for a moment, you might think you are communicating a clear message when you speak. But if your body is sending a different message, well, then your audience is just not going to react as you had hoped. You think you are a competent speaker, but if they see you slouching, not making eye contact, or pulling your earlobes, The audience will not feel confident that they can trust what you are saying. They may even stop listening. You know, we start to read each other's body language from a very young age. Anytime we speak, the other person is checking our gestures and movements to see if they match what we are saying. You may not be aware of doing this, but we all do it. It comes naturally and is something we learn to do very well over time. If you think about your friends or your coworkers, for example, after a while you get to know their moods just by observing their body language or gestures. You know, your boss has a certain facial expression when he or she is upset, or maybe one of the guys in your office taps his fingers on his desk when he is feeling irritable. An effective communicator will use what he or she sees in other people and take advantage of it. Even more important, however, is knowing and understanding your own body language. If you can exert a certain degree of control over the messages given by your body, you will be able to manipulate the responses of other people. You need to be aware of what your body is saying if you hope to succeed. Let me ask you a question. When we meet people and talk to them, they receive information from us. What percentage of that information comes from what we say? I mean, the words we use when we speak. Any guesses? Yes?
Maybe 75%?
Good guess, but I'm afraid not. Anyone else?
I'd say about 50%.
Wrong again. Would you believe that just 10% of the information is in the words? That means that 90%, the vast majority of that information, is in our gestures, our expressions, our tone of voice, and, well, all of the other stuff. Now, I'd like to give you some examples of body language that you might like to consider in your daily life. We don't have much time, so I'll focus on just a few aspects. Remember, I'm just giving you an introduction here. I'm sure you'll recognize a lot of these as things you often do yourself. Eye contact. How do you feel when you are talking to someone and they make very little or no eye contact? You feel they are disinterested, don't you? Or what if they make too much and they seem to be staring? Either way, you are not going to form a very good impression of that person. Most of us do it all the time, but folding your arms across your body is very negative. It says, "Don't approach me, don't come any closer." That is not something you want to say at a job interview. Hold your body upright, keep it open and relaxed, and align yourself to place your body face to face with the other person. Then they'll think you are honest and truthful. So make a mental note to check your body language to make sure your body is saying the same thing as your mouth. With practice, you can send the desired message every time.
Number 1. What aspect of communication does the professor mainly discuss? Number 2. How does the professor emphasize her point about the importance of posture and gestures? Number 3. According to the professor, how much of the information people receive when we talk to them comes from the words that we say? Number 4. According to the professor, why is it important to know and understand your own body language? Number 5. Why does the professor mention eye contact? Number 6. What does the speaker imply when she says this?
Would you believe that just 10% of the information is in the words?
Skill D. Matching words and categories. 1. Campus life.
Are you campaigning for the Senate this year?
I hadn't thought about it. What does it involve?
Student senators decide what to do with the money we pay in student fees, and they deal with all of the organizations at the university. Stuff like that.
Who's eligible to run?
You have to be a full-time student and have at least a 2.0 GPA.
So, if you are elected, are you in until you graduate?
No, it's just a year. Then you can be re-elected. You can be kicked out, too, if you don't attend the meetings.
Sounds interesting. I'll mull it over.
Number 1. What are the 2 qualifications needed to run for a student senate position? Choose 2 answers. Number 2. What does the student mean when he says this?
Stuff like that.
Two. Economics.
Money is something that can be exchanged for goods and services. It has several uses. One is that it is a medium of exchange. It is a lot easier to do business in a money-based economy than a barter-based one. Currency, or money, gives people a lot more flexibility in spending than trying to buy things with chickens or bags of grain. Money is also a way to measure value. When things are given a monetary value, we can compare their costs and values. Thirdly, money is an asset. We can put aside some money and use it at a later date.
Number 1. What are the uses of money mentioned in the lecture? Click on 3 answers. Number 2. What does the professor imply when she says this?
It is a lot easier to do business in a money-based economy than a barter-based one.
Number 3. Is each of these statements discussed in the lecture? For each phrase, mark the correct box. Three. Music. A chord is the sound created when 3 or more different notes or pitches are played simultaneously or relatively close together. Some combinations of notes are more popular than others, so normally only those 3-note groups that are commonly used are called chords. On top of that, different genres of music tend to favor some chords over others. For example, power chords are often used in hard rock. They involve only 2 pitch classes. This is why power chords are common in this genre. Rock music involves a lot of distortion, and the power chords can avoid a lot of surplus noise. Number 1. According to the professor, in which music genre are power chords commonly used? Number 2. What does the professor mean when he says this? Rock music involves a lot of distortion, and the power chords can avoid a lot of surplus noise. Number 3. Based on information in the talk, indicate whether each phrase below describes chords or non-chords. 4. Campus life.
Excuse me, sorry. How do I know which textbooks I need?
It's listed in the course schedule for some classes, but it's best to go to the first class and get the syllabus to be sure. Textbooks are pretty expensive. You don't want to buy one you don't need.
Okay. Are there any used textbooks?
Usually. They're half off and are stacked next to the new ones. Look for the blue label. First come, first served.
Uh-huh. If I get the wrong book, can I get a refund?
Yes, within 7 days of purchase. However, you must bring back the receipt, and the book must be in the same condition as when you bought it.
Number 1. What are some of the conditions necessary for a student to get a refund on a textbook? Choose 3 answers. Number 2. What does the woman mean when she says this?
You don't want to buy one you don't need.
Number 3. Are these statements true based on the information in the conversation? For each phrase, mark the correct box. 5. Ecology. 3 major biomes will be on the test: the tundra, the desert, and the grasslands. Let's go over them. The tundra is a polar desert. Little precipitation, long cold winters, no trees, and a full range of daylight hours, from 0 to 24 hours. Grasslands are found inland, have hot summers and cold winters. Grasslands get 15 to 30 inches of rainfall annually, and remember that there are 2 types: tall grass and short grass. Tall grass grasslands have thick, fertile soil. Short grass grasslands have thinner soil. Deserts are located within 20 to 30 degrees of the equator. They have hot days, cold nights, and little rainfall. Only about 1 to 10 inches of rain per year. Number 1. According to the professor, which biomes feature little precipitation? Choose 2 answers. Number 2. Why does the professor say this? 3 major biomes will be on the test. Number 3. Are these statements true about short grass biomes? For each phrase, mark the correct box. Six. Religious studies.
So, welcome to Religion and Morality. I hope you are all as excited to learn about this topic as I am to teach it. We will be spending a lot of time discussing what, if anything, the connection between religion and morality is. A lot of our moral vocabulary originally came from religious institutions. Religious groups today often make ethical prescriptions for their followers, take public stances, and participate in political activism on several key issues. God, of course, is a huge question. We will begin with the assumption that there is at least one God who is good. Later, we will examine the opposite assumption, that there is no God. The big question is what implications these assumptions have regarding morality.
Number 1. According to the professor, where does a lot of our moral vocabulary originate? Number 2. What is the professor's attitude towards the subject he's teaching? Number 3. Match each phrase below with the correct classification. 7. Campus life.
Remember, these swimming drills are not for fitness. They are for recovery.
I understand. I'm not trying to get in shape.
That's right. And that's important because you don't want to overdo it.
So, I should swim slowly?
Yes, you should be very relaxed and keep your heart rate down.
So, what is the goal of these sessions?
The most important thing is getting your balance. The goal is to have perfect form throughout the session. Your neck and spine should be aligned at all times.
How is that possible?
Only your hips and your chin rotate.
Okay, I'll try.
Number 1. According to the instructor, what is the main goal of the swimming session? Number 2. Why does the man say this?
I'm not trying to get in shape.
Number 3. Match each word with the correct classification. Eight. Botany.
The fruit of a rose is called the hip. Most rose hips are red, but a few species, like Pimpinellifolia, have dark purple or black hips. Each hip typically contains 5 to 25 seeds enclosed by stiff hairs. The hips of some species, particularly Canina and Rugosa, are very high in vitamin C, making them a vital food source for some birds. Now, I'm sure you are all well aware that most rose plants have thorns. They are usually hook-like and have evolved to help these plants hang on to other plants when growing over them. The Rugosa and Pimpinellifolia species, however, have tight clusters of straight spines instead, perhaps to inhibit sand erosion.
Number 1. According to the professor, why have roses evolved thorns? Number 2. Why does the professor mention that most rose hips are red? Number 3. Match each word or phrase with the correct category. Skill E. Making inferences and predictions. 1. Campus life.
Your English is really progressing, Maria.
It's all thanks to my language partner.
What do language partners do?
Well, they get together with foreign students for 1 or 2 hours a week and help them practice casual conversation.
Is that all?
No, most partners explain Canadian culture and go to concerts and parties together. Mine has shown me some tremendous attractions here in Vancouver.
Isn't it kind of expensive?
No, the partners are all volunteers. It's a great way to make friends and practice English with a native speaker at the same time. My partner has really helped me adjust to life in Canada.
Number 1. Are these statements about what language partners do true? For each phrase, mark the correct box. Number 2. What can be inferred about the woman? 2. Physics.
What is the truth about light wave theory? For many years, scientists were in disagreement. Newton hypothesized that light traveled faster in a denser medium, like a wave. On the other hand, Christian Huygens, in 1690, postulated that light waves slowed down in a denser medium, like particles. The problem was that it was impossible to measure the speed of light accurately. However, in 1850, Leon Foucault made the first accurate measurement. His results supported the wave theory for light. The theory was accepted until the late 19th century when Einstein discovered that light striking a surface caused particles to change their speed. This marked a return to contradiction and disagreement.
Number 1. Match each scientist to the theory his work supported. Number 2. What will the professor probably discuss next? Number 3. What does the professor imply when she says this?
This marked a return to contradiction and disagreement.
Three. Geography. Did you know that the Mediterranean is part of the Atlantic Ocean? Though attached to the Atlantic, it is also a sea almost completely flanked by land. Europe to the north, Africa to the south, and Asia to the east. That is how it got its name. The name of this body of water comes from the Latin Methi, which means middle, and Terra, which means land. So even though it's a huge body of water, its name literally translates as Middle Land. It has a long history of civilization and was instrumental in facilitating marine transportation in ancient times. Number 1. Is each of these subjects discussed in the lecture? For each phrase, mark the correct box. Number 2. What does the professor imply when he says this? Did you know that the Mediterranean is part of the Atlantic Ocean? Number 3. What does the professor mean when he says this? It has a long history of civilization. 4. Campus life.
How do I register for a student union class?
Just head up to the 3rd floor of the Student Union building.
Okay, thanks.
Oh, wait, is the course you want to take work-related? If it is, you might want to register at the Student Employment Office.
Actually, it is. I'm an aspiring bartender. I was hoping to get my bar skills certificate so I could apply for a position in a bar.
Is the bar here on campus?
Yes.
In that case, I would recommend registering at the Student Employment Office. That way you can automatically apply for the bartending job when you register for the course.
That's great. Thanks a lot.
Number 1. Are these statements about the woman true? For each statement, mark the correct box. Number 2. Listen again to part of the conversation and answer the question.
Just head up to the 3rd floor of the Student Union building.
Okay, thanks.
Oh, wait, is the course you want to take work-related?
What can be inferred about the woman? Number 3. What will the man most likely do next? 5. Political science. After the First World War, the League of Nations was established for the purpose of settling conflicts between countries peacefully. As we know from the outbreak of World War II, they ultimately failed in their objective. The League lacked strength because it didn't have an army. It relied on its most powerful members to enforce its resolutions, but these countries were reluctant to do so. Britain and France, after World War I, were largely pacifist and therefore reluctant to use force against Hitler's growing military regime. In the 1930s, the fascist powers left the League, and eventually World War II brought an end to the League of Nations. But the League did have one lasting effect. Number 1. Are each of these statements true about the League of Nations? Choose yes or no. Number 2. What does the professor imply when he says this? It relied on its most powerful members to enforce its resolutions, but these countries were reluctant to do so. Britain and France, after World War I, were largely pacifist and therefore reluctant to use force against Hitler's growing military regime. Number 3. What will the professor discuss next? Six. Art history.
Impressionism was a movement that began in the visual arts and then extended into music. Does that surprise some of you? Impressionist painters broke away from the tradition of creating lifelike depictions. They used light and color to portray the impact or feeling of a subject. And soon after Impressionism was established in art, musicians began applying its maxims to their compositions. They aimed to create the feeling of color and light in their music. Some Impressionist musicians actually composed music as interpretations of paintings. Impressionism in both painting and music aim to portray the impact or feeling of a subject rather than a literal depiction. So let's listen to a piece and analyze how a composer can do this.
Number 1. Based on information from the lecture, indicate whether each phrase below describes Impressionist or Pre-Impressionist work. Number 2. What does the professor imply about painters before the Impressionist movement? Number 3. What will the professor discuss next? Seven. Campus life.
Excuse me, could you tell me where the campus post office is located?
It's on the first floor of the Student Union building, next to the information desk.
Do you know its hours of operation?
7:30 to 3:30, but during the summer it opens later, at 8 a.m.
So from next month it will open at 8 a.m. I see. Do they sell envelopes and stuff like a regular post office?
Yes, they primarily sell stamps and envelopes, but they carry other relevant postal products as well.
Do they have a post office box service?
Yes, P.O. boxes can be rented for $5 a month.
That's $5 per month?
That's right. That's the same price you'll find at off-campus post offices too.
Is that right? Then I might as well rent one on campus.
Number 1. Is each of these post office services discussed in the conversation? Choose yes or no. Number 2. Listen to part of the conversation, then answer the question.
That's the same price you'll find at off-campus post offices too.
Is that right?
What can be inferred about the student? Number 3. What will the woman probably do? Eight. Photography. The process of taking a photograph involves exposing film to light. The amount of light that falls on the film is called the exposure. This is all something you'll have to do, so let me try to clarify that. Exposure is controlled by the lens aperture, the size of the hole letting in the light, and the shutter speed, the amount of time that the hole is opened for. Now, when planning exposure, a photographer considers reciprocity. This refers to the reciprocal relationship between aperture and shutter speed. For example, a slow shutter speed means that the film is getting more exposure to the light. Therefore, a smaller aperture is required. Similarly, a wide aperture requires a faster shutter speed. So, you must first determine the exposure and then adjust the aperture and shutter speed appropriately. Any guesses about how you can determine this? Number 1. Match each statement with the correct classification. Number 2. What can be inferred about the students? Number 3. What will the professor discuss next?